I think everything is good. Yeah. Hey, what's up, you guys? Um, so this video is going to be kind of like a condensed version of how I pick up characters, and this mostly applies to fighting games, but it works more or less in a similar fashion towards like any other game. Um, One of the main things that I always start off with the character is usually like their walk speed. I test, to see how their forward movement is, like their general movement in general, like how they walk forward, how they walk back, their front dash, back dash, how their jumps are, if it's floaty or not. And then I start checking their jump-ins. Like I see, like what their jump-ins do, like what are the properties, where they hit, how they hit, and stuff like that. If they're multi-hitting, how viable it is. It's jumping a little ahead, but it's like later on I will test out like where the hitbox is, like how it hits or how far it hits. Like Ivy's, her jump to, like, it hits a lot further than what it looks like it's gonna hit. But yeah, that's more or less how I just check like their general movement and stuff. And then after that I start breaking it down towards like their pokes, like they're down 1 and then they're down 3. Like seeing the range of it. I don't really check the frame data as of now. I'm more just trying to figure out like how it hits and where it hits, and also like looking at the recovery. So then after that, like, just because I don't want to dive too much into this because it'll take a while, then I open up their move list and then I start looking at all of their basic attacks. I see, like what they actually have. I'm still not looking at the frame data per se. But I see what it is that they have. Like, I see what hits where. So I see like this move, it says that it's a low. I'm like, oh, okay, so it's a low. And then times like that, I'll be like, okay, how fast is that, and where it reaches. So it's like, okay, it's like a pretty decent low, like decent range, and it reaches, that's the same thing I just said, the range. But it's like the startup of it is decent. So then I see like the other stuff, like the hit properties, really. See, like her down 1, it's a mid, some down 1s are lows. So that's really what I check for, like at the start, just to see like what I can use, like what can be abused, what cannot be, like if something is like, a gimmick or not. And when I start checking all of this stuff, it's like I'm also checking like the hit properties in general. Like I'm still not looking at the startup, but I want to see like what hits where. So like this is a high. It doesn't look like it's supposed to be a high, but it is. That's a high. This is also a high. So like that's a mid. It's also a mid, even though it looks like a low. And then like for this game specifically, I start looking at their back 3 and their forward 3. For this, I actually do check the startup at the start. Like this is 26 frames, and then our forward 3 is 32. Like I want to see how fast it is and how much range it has, so I can see, like what's the viability of using these moves. I'm very sorry for my neighbors in the background. So I obviously know this of Ivy, but then if I'm picking up a character, like let's say I never used Ivy, I never even like touched a character, then I would check to see like any like special properties. Like with her forward 3, you can change the range of it. Like you have the short version, you have the further version, like the regular one, and then you have the far one. Then we're down 3, obviously it's a sweep, so it's a low. So that's what I check like right off the bat. And then after that, I start checking the strings. I see like what hits where. I'm still not looking at the frame data. I'm still not looking what's plus, what's negative, what's punishable, etc, etc. What launches necessarily, like I'm not paying attention to any of that stuff. I just want to see what hits where and what are the inputs. So usually at this point I actually start highlighting all this stuff, and I highlight like the full string. See, like with this, I don't highlight the shorter versions just because, if you see the full string, you know where you can just cut it off. So like back 1, 2, I'll just highlight back 1, 2, 3 because, obviously I can just stagger it. I can stop at back 1, 2. So that's how I tackle that. And then that's basically all her stuff. So I see what's there. So I see, like her standing 1. See, like 1, 2 with this specific string doesn't come out. You have to do 1, 2, 3. So let's see how that works. Then I'll see how that string, you know, how it behaves. And that one too. And I just start like feeling out the strings, like feeling out their ranges, how they hit, where they hit, like the recovery, like what kind of property happens after I hit them. Like with this move, like it juggles them a bit, as you can see. So I just started like just testing all this stuff out of general. And then this is more or less where I start feeling almost just like, okay, do I have like any mix options, you know, like any 50-50s? And for Ivy, she honestly doesn't have anything. See, like with this would technically be like the only one because you can cancel from this into the overhead. Instead of ending it in a low. But that's kind of it. She doesn't have any low specials, which is what I would check afterwards. I jumped ahead a little bit. But it's like, you know, I check the specials after. And this, I do look at the hit properties. So it's like, let's say, you know, I'm looking through everything, blah, 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 nothing hits low. So I can't cancel into a single low. So the only mix-up that I have would be canceling into her forward 3, which would be the overhead. So any string that has a low in it, that's where I would have a mix option, but that's it. So like that second hit's a low, so I can do this and get a combo that way. Or like back 2, down 2. And that's really it. Like that's what I just start like looking for, like looking at the hit properties. And then after that, like I was saying, I start looking at the specials. So I usually untag everything and then I just start tagging all of the specials to see what I can do with this stuff. So you see, like with this, I'm not going to highlight all this stuff because I can just remember this. It's like, okay, it's the same exact input as the original and then just hit forward and back. So there's that one. And then there's that. Like for here, I start looking at the hit properties too, and like the recovery. Like seeing how viable it is to throw this stuff out, like full screen. And then I start messing around with the trait to see like what are the options with their trait. So like with this, it does its own crap, you know, like you press the trait button, it comes out, it behaves on its own, and then the only thing that you can alter with it is the borrow move. So after I do all of that, after I get like a general sense of like what hits where, what my specials are, what my strings are, then I start testing out what can be cancelled and what cannot. So then I'm gonna, usually I'll go for like the fastest special, right? So for her it would be her vine drill. So I untag everything again. I memorize what that special is, so obviously that's the vine drill, it's just down back 2, it's not hard to remember. And then I start highlighting everything else again to remember all the strings. And then I just start checking like what can be cancelled. Like that's like such a slow cancel. Like it's not viable at all. So I try to see like what can be cancelled and what connects at the same time. See, like that connects. That connects. That can't be cancelled, this string. That connects and that cancels. This string cannot be cancelled. So it's like I just start making note as to what I can and can't use. So that comes out. So like this is multi-hitting. So I can cancel either at the first hit or the second one. So there's like little minor, like micro things that I started paying attention to also. Like this string also. How it's 2 hits. but you can cancel on the first hit or on the second. That connects. That connects. Can't cancel out of this. Can't cancel that. This string, you know, you can't cancel out of it. So it's like some stuff, it looks like it should be cancelable. Other things look like they can't. So that's just why I just test all the strings out, just to see. And then especially the down one too. I check to see if her pokes, or the character's pokes in general, if they can combo into anything. So see, like with this, I realize that it's not comboing into anything, so I just make note of that. And then later on, when I start delving into the character more, I start looking at the options that I have. It's like, okay, what can I do to get a combo off of, you know, like her down one? So I finish like doing everything else. This isn't cancelable. Not cancelable. That can be cancelled. That can be cancelled. That can't be cancelled. So I just like check all that stuff out in general. And then this is the part where it starts getting a little complicated and then a little extensive. So I'm going to try to condense it as much as I can. Once I find all that stuff out, I start coming back to like the down one, and then I start seeing if there's actually a faster special, you know, for it to connect. And then I notice that she has her this stance right here, the Tora hammer. And then I start testing out how fast I can do these cancels. So see, like if I was just picking her up, like which is what happened before too, I noticed that canceling to this and then to the meter burn version is actually like a really fast cancel. So then I would just test out if that all connects, in which case it does. So like with this on its own, it does 8 hits. But then if you cancel from the down one, it does 9 because it connects. So then I realized, okay, so this is technically my fastest cancel, but for a bar. And the execution is a little bit, you know, troublesome. So that would be the only thing that I would really make note of, because every single thing else, either from the first move or like from the whole string itself or like mid-string, it cancels into the vine drill. So I don't actually have to worry about, you know, doing like this crazy cancel. So this is like the more complex part that I was talking about, is that I start looking for the formula for the character. Because in almost every single fighting game, especially NRS games, every character, it's like you do a specific string, you do a specific special cancel, and then you continue your combo the same exact way for the most part. So examples of that would be like Catwoman, she does a string, goes into cat dash, meter burns it, does it back 3, that's her combo. Anything that she does, more or less. Wonder Woman, any string, shield toss, meter burn it, do a forward 2 3 or do a back 3, combo ends the same exact way every single time. You know, you can follow it up the same exact way. And everybody's most likely the same in that aspect, in that respect. Harley also, any string, go to tantrum stance 1, do a back 3, there's your BNB. So that's what I start looking for in the new characters that I pick up, like what is their formula for their combos. So for Ivy's, it's, for the most part, it's either doing the vine drill and then you do her forward 3, and then you continue onwards. And basically every single combo works that same exact way. Or you can do like her Datura stance and then get your combos that way. And then, you know, back to down 2, go into the kiss, and then so on and so forth. So that's really just what I start like labbing. That's what takes the most part for me in my labbing. It's just trying to find out formula for every single character. And then for the strings that are the exception, like for this one for example, because it juggles them but I can cancel, this is where I start like finding like alternatives. So it's like I can either do that, I can do the vine drill, meter burn it, and get this as a combo, or incorporate like a what is it, a floor bounce cancel. So I'm not landing that perfectly, but this is where I start like looking for like the different stuff that I can do. Oh well. But yeah, you get the idea. And then for this one also, since I can't cancel it, I want to see if I can like connect anything. And it turns out that you can. So I start making note. You can either jot this down like in memory, or like jot it down on a pad or something. But it's like just note the things that don't stick to the formula, so that way you don't make the mistake where it's like, okay, let me just do this and let me just meter burn my vine drill, you know, and it's like, oh crap, I can't actually continue the combo. You know, like let's say you do this, meter burn, and then you go for forward 3, and it's like, oh look, it doesn't connect, you know. Or it's like you're trying to cancel into your vine drill after this. It's like you're mashing out the vine drill, it's not coming out, and then you just drop your whole combo. So it's like it's just trying to like note down all the little changes that you need to make for specific strings or starters. And that's more or less how I start. Like I don't actually like I don't try to figure out their game plan right away. I don't look at their frame data necessarily. Like, I'm not looking, you know, what's plus, you know, what are my cancels, can I do cancels, do I have pressure? I don't pay attention to any of that. I try to figure out what are all of my BMBs first, and then I start looking at the BMBs for like a forward 3, like a raw forward 3, and then a raw back 3. Like I try to see like what are the combos for those. And then depending on the character, I start looking at the setups afterwards. Like once I find out the formula, I'm just like, okay, so that's how all the BMBs work. Okay, so now like what are the best enders for every single BMB? And then with Ivy, this is where you start incorporating their play a little bit. For Ivy, her gameplay revolves around, you know, like the trait, right? She gets it out, she's like setting up, and then she lets that, you know, help her out. So then I start looking for enders that guarantee the trait to come out safely. And it's more, she has a lot. It's either that, you do this string, it lets you get out the trait safely. You do this string, lets you get it out safely as well. So it's just trying to find like all these enders that basically, you know, help out her play. And then while I'm figuring that out too, I also start checking to see what are hard knockdowns and what are normal knockdowns. In a general sense, hard knockdowns are like your go-to because it's like a splat, they can't go anywhere. But at the same exact time, it depends on the frame data from it. And this is where I would check the frame data, and this is where I would test wake-ups. Because it could be a hard knockdown, which is great, but if it's only like +5, you're not getting that much out of it. Whereas if it's like a normal knockdown, but let's say you're +50, it's like just use that because you're so massively plus, you know? It doesn't really matter that it's not a hard knockdown because you can always just dash up and you have so many frames to move around before the opponent can. So, you know, like it adds to the knockdown game. So that's where I would start testing that stuff out. Like I usually test like what's tech rollable and what isn't. So, you know, you could just go here, roll mode on or off, and then just check to see like what can be teched and what can't be. So that can be teched. Let's say they're in a juggle and I do this, that can be teched also. Can be teched. What are other specials? I don't think she has anything else that's actually gonna hit. Because the Kiss of Death, that's a restand, so it doesn't even add anything to it. Oh, I guess this. That's still a normal knockdown. That's still a normal knockdown. And that's a hard knockdown. And that's a normal knockdown. Well, the other one was a hard knockdown, the low ball one, the low mace thing. And then just like testing out all the strings. I'm not going to test all the strings because it's so much to test. But that's more or less just what I start looking for. And it's really just for mid-screen. Just because when you have them in a corner, it doesn't matter if it's a hard knockdown or not. They can't roll anywhere, you know? So it's not going to really make that much of a difference. The only time that it would make a difference is if you're going for a specific setup, and by then tech rolling or not, it actually alters the frame data. Because some setups, it's like if they tech roll, it adds more frames of advantage to you, so it makes certain setups safe. And then for others, if they tech roll, it actually cuts down the frames of advantage for you, so you can get punished if they tech as opposed to if they don't. But that's kind of like more complex stuff, and that's just stuff that I would check on like later on. But for the most part, it's really just checking all the BMBs. And then like jump in converts, I start testing that stuff out too. Like I try to see if I were to air them, like what I can possibly do. And just general stuff like that. Ivy is still a character that I'm still like trying to get down. So that's why I actually used her as this example, just because I felt like it would be the best fit. But yeah. So start checking stuff like that. I start checking stuff in the corner, like trying to see what converts I can possibly get. And this also applies to the same thing. When I was talking earlier about the whole finding out that formula for the characters as to how their BMBs work, that was really just for mid-screen. I skipped ahead a little bit, but it's like after that you would try to find the BMBs for the corner, because things do change in the corner. You know, the juggle properties change. Or it's like some moves only connect, you know, they only link with another when it's in the corner only. And then that would be the next thing that I would check too, just like seeing what kind of converts I can get. Like let's say I get like a jump 3, like a meaty, you know, like if I'm jumping in at them, like what can I do to convert off of that? So like I can do this. So I'd be like, okay, this is like an option that I have for landing a jump 3 in the corner. And that's more or less it. Because my philosophy is that you want to try to figure out the character as best as you can, in terms of their damage, in terms of, you know, getting the most out of whatever hit it is that they manage to land. Just because I feel like you can go the alternate route, and you could try to learn, you know, like their neutral, you can learn their game plan, their matchups and stuff like that. Sure, that's all great and all, but if you're not really paying attention to their combos and how to convert off of so many different things, because especially in NRS games there's converts pretty much everywhere, then you're not going to really cash out as much as you can. So that's why I approach it this way. I know not everybody approaches it this way, not everybody may agree, everybody has like their own different approach, but this is my own. So I just try to learn every single thing that I possibly can in terms of damage. It's like, you know, how much damage can I do, like off of this convert, off of this BMB. I start checking, you know, like what's my fastest Punisher, what's my most optimal Punisher, like what does the most damage. There was something else that I was missing. Oh, I started looking for like side switch combos. Like if I land a back 3, I'm just like, okay, how can I switch sides if I need to? So you see, like that's an option. I'm not landing it right just because she's not like my character, but yeah. So I start checking all of that stuff out. There was one other part that I was missing, that I was getting with this. Like it was on the tip of my tongue and I completely forgot about it. I might remember afterwards. But yeah, that's just what I do. I start learning all the BMBs, all the converts, all the combos, and all that stuff. Oh yeah, their chip. Like I start seeing like how much chip I can possibly do, so I'll set them to block. Like I try to see, you know, like where are the ranges where I can start like chipping them out. You know, like for Ivy, because she has this trait, I'm just like, okay, how much trait, you know, how much does this trait chip do, along with my own zoning? Like, what can I do altogether? And you know, like I look at the health parts and I see how much it does. So then after I get all of that down, then comes the grinding. Like I start grinding down the combos to have them consistent, so that, you know, like when you do a combo, or when you start landing a hit, you can actually land the combos afterwards. Like you can land the converts, you can get the hit confirms. Just because it's all great and all if you have a general sense of what the combo is, but then if you can't land it, then what good is it, you know? So then after basically covering all the combos and getting all that stuff down, that's when I start learning their play. I start learning, you know, exactly like what are the ranges, what can I abuse, you know, like what's the recovery on like A through Z, you know, like what hits where, how good are the jumps, where can I jump, how good are the anti-airs, you know, like what are my Oki setups, you know, like what can I abuse with trait, you know, what can I manipulate with trait, and stuff like that. Like, do I have any grab setups and things of that nature? So that's when, after all the combo stuff, that's when I started applying all of this. I start checking out their neutral, how good it is. I start looking at the frame data, you know, like what's plus, what's negative, what it can stagger, what it can cancel, Like I start checking to see what I can do with the Datura stance. And then this thing too, this is also what I start trying to practice down, because it's like, if the cancels are actually like a viable thing, but if it's difficult to do and to save myself from getting, you know, like the wrong button inputs, then I'll take the time out to try to practice these cancels also. Me personally, I don't think that her Datura stance cancels are really all that good. Just because they're not plus, they're all negative. I mean, like, it's more just like, it's really gimmicky. Like, if you try to poke her out, she can make a hard read and cancel into something else, and then she gets a combo for it. But then if she makes a hard read and you're blocking and she does the attack, you can punish her for it, you know? So that's why I don't really try to mess around with it too much. Like, I treat this more of either guaranteed pressure, like I just cancel into something right away to get the chip, or I just use it as a hit confirm for like the rest of her BMBs, which will be part of like the whole combo formula thing for her. And then once I finally feel somewhat comfortable with this and comfortable with the character, like I know what hits where, the ranges, I actually don't jump into matches like right away. I don't even touch like the AI per se, not right off the bat. I actually watch like gameplay footage of other people using these characters. And I see, you know, like what is it that they do, what it can possibly change up, how they treat certain matchups, how they maneuver with the character, like how do they treat their movement. And then after that, I actually jump into the multiverse first with the character, and then I start jumping into matches. Just because after you start grinding all this stuff out, and at least for me, when I put all of this together, once I actually jump into a match, I don't feel helpless with the character. I feel like if I manage to land a hit, I know that I can cash out. If I'm put in a weird situation, like I'm forced to like block a whole bunch of pressure, I at least know, you know, like what are my options and what I can do to convert if I manage to land a hit. Oh, now I remember what I was talking about before, what I wanted to talk about. Oh wow, my wording is so bad. Is testing the wake-ups. Testing your own character, like if they get knocked down, if they have an invincible wake-up, and how viable it is. For Ivy, it's not really all that great, because all she has is the kiss. In which, if they're pressing buttons, it's going to hit them. But if they just neutral jump, then, you know, it does nothing. So then it's like trying to figure out different options for like when they get knocked down. So for Ivy, she can just like meter burn roll out, you know, on a hard read or on reaction. She can wake up with a down 2, wake up with a poke, wake up with standing 1, or standing 2 I mean. Wake up with a grab, and stuff like that. But yeah. And then after that, it's really just grinding it out. It's like still trying to, like going back into the lab, polishing up the combos, trying to find different enders or different changes to BMB so that you can make them more optimal to do more damage, to get more meter build out of it. And then it's still just like grinding out the matchups. It's still just like playing games with other people, because at this point, at least for me, I feel comfortable with the character where it's like, okay, you know, like I can run certain matchups with this, or I can run most games with the character. I won't win, you know, all the time, but at least it's a learning process, and you know, it's not like you're handicapped. And then I guess like closing it out, like little minor things, it's like I start checking out like the character's meter build, like what specials I can use to build my meter, or how much of a specific special I need to throw out to build meter, to build like a bar. I check their super, like it's like, you know, like is it safe, is it plus on block, how fast is it. See, like this is like stupidly negative, and it doesn't even have that much range. See, like it reaches there, it's only a mid. See, it doesn't reach that far. And then that would kind of be like the last thing. I start looking at like super combos, where it's like, is it worth it to do a BMB and then cancel into the super? Like, does it really add as much damage, you know, or does it like scale really hard? So I might as well just save myself the meter. But yeah, that's really just about it. That's more or less just how I start learning characters. Sometimes I take inspiration, like if I start watching the gameplay footage, I'll be like, oh, okay, like I can do that BMB instead of what I've been doing. Then I'll take those combos. I'll be like, okay, I'll just incorporate that into my play. But I try not to look at combo videos at the start, just because I feel like usually the stuff that's already out, for the most part, most of them are optimal, but then I feel like there's always like these subtle little changes that you can make. And I feel like it's just better to kind of feel out the character on your own, to feel out how comfortable you are with the character and how comfortable you are with BMBs. Just because certain BMBs for other characters that other players do, it's like they do it their own way, but for some people it's just not. It's not simple to do. Like for some people doing like Wonder Woman, like doing a string into shield toss. For some people doing back three is like whatever, but then for other people it's like such a tight link, so they'd rather do forward to three and then do back three afterwards. So that's more or less just the example that I'm trying to talk about. So that's why I try not to look at combo videos right away. I try to figure out what I can do on my own, optimize those, and then when I see other combos and if they do more damage, I'm like, oh, okay, cool, so I'll just replace that instead. Or I try to replicate those combos and then try to see if I can improve upon them even more. But yeah, that's really just about it. It went on a lot longer than I thought that it would have, but I hope that it's of use for anyone that was asking about this and is looking to pick up other characters and they don't really know how to go about doing so. But yeah, hope it's of use, and I hope you guys have a good day or night. Take care.